Hello and welcome to Message Joe. Subscribe to the channel by clicking on the bell to not miss new videos, and don't forget to like us because it's the best support for us. So, here we are. The day everything I thought I knew came crashing down. I discovered my wife, Rachel, had been cheating on me. Now, I bet you're wondering, was it with her boss? Some smooth-talking coworker? Or maybe one of those gym rats who can't stop posting shirtless pics on Instagram? Nope. None of that. The truth is still something I can barely process, even now. But don't worry, I'll get to that soon enough. Let me rewind a little. Rachel and I have been together for 5 years, married for 3. I'm 27, and she's 26. Yeah, we're still young. We were supposed to be building a life together, maybe thinking about kids someday, the usual. At least, that's what I thought we were doing. We both come from good families. My parents? They adored her like their own daughter. Every time we visited, my mom would ask about Rachel before even bothering to ask about me. And her parents? Her dad didn't hesitate to tell me I was the best thing that ever happened to his daughter. From the outside, we were that perfect couple, the golden ones. It was a Sunday. We just wrapped up the weekend after staying at my parents' place. We did one of those big family get-togethers. Lots of food, too much wine, and a whole lot of catching up. I'll admit I might have gone a bit overboard on the drinks the night before, but hey, it was a good time. So Rachel volunteered to drive us home, which was fine with me. She was always the designated driver anyway. I was half passed out, leaning against the passenger window, still feeling the leftover haze from the booze. The drive was quiet, just the sound of the car humming along and the tires rolling on the pavement. It felt like one of those ordinary moments where everything seems perfectly normal, until it wasn't. We were about 10 minutes from home when I noticed flashing lights in the rearview mirror. We were being pulled over. Rachel sighed, mumbling something about how she might have been going a bit too fast. I didn't think much of it. I was too out of it to care. The cop came up to her window, asked for her license and registration, just the usual. Everything seemed routine. Rachel flashed her usual charming smile and reached into her bag for her license. That's when I saw it. A condom. A damn wrapped condom sticking out from the edge of her wallet. Now, let me make something clear. Rachel and I, we don't use condoms. Haven't since we moved in together, long before we even got married. We both got tested. We trusted each other, or at least I trusted her. We were married, for God's sake. So seeing that little square of latex sitting in her bag like it belonged there, it felt like a punch straight to the gut. I just stared at it, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Was it left over from before we got married? No, that didn't add up. She used to carry them when we first started dating, but that was years ago. Was it for a friend? I couldn't even believe I was trying to rationalize that. My mind was spiraling into the darkest corners almost immediately. Then came the ringing in my ears. You know that sound, like when you're underwater and everything is muffled and far away. That's exactly how it felt. The cop was talking, but his voice sounded distant, like it wasn't even real. My chest tightened, my head was spinning, and I wasn't sure if I was about to throw up or pass out. "Sir, are you all right?" The officer's voice finally broke through the fog. He was looking right at me, probably because I had that blank deer-in-the-headlights stare plastered across my face. I snapped back to reality, muttering, "Yeah, I'm good," which, thinking back, was probably the biggest lie I've ever told. Rachel, cool as ever, let out this nervous little laugh she always did when she was uncomfortable and said, "Oh, he just had a bit too much to drink last night. You know how it goes." I nearly lost it right then and there. The way she acted like everything was perfectly fine, like she wasn't hiding something, like that condom wasn't sitting there playing his day in her bag. I clenched my fists in my lap, trying to keep myself from exploding. The cop didn't pick up on any of it. He just handed her a warning and sent us on our way. The rest of the ride home, I didn't say a single word. My mind was racing, going over every possibility, every scenario. Was she cheating on me? How long had this been going on? And with who? Every passing minute felt like another gut punch. I kept replaying the moment in my head, the way that condom peeked out like it was mocking me. But I didn't say anything. I couldn't. Not yet. I didn't know what I was dealing with, and I wasn't about to start a fight in the car. Maybe, just maybe, there was an explanation I hadn't thought of, or maybe this was the beginning of something I wasn't ready to face. I wasn't sure. I just knew that if I was going to confront her, I needed a plan. Something solid. Something that would force her to admit everything. So, I sat there, staring out the window, letting the anger bubble beneath the surface as my thoughts spiraled out of control. I couldn't even bring myself to look at her. Rachel tried to make small talk a few times, but I just gave half-hearted grunts in response. She probably thought I was just hungover. But the reality? I was already plotting my next move. The one thing I knew for certain? This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. After that day, I realized sitting around and hoping for answers wasn't going to get me anywhere. If I wanted to know the truth, I'd have to dig for it myself, and I'd have to do it without Rachel catching on. So I made a decision. I took 2 weeks off from work, told my boss I needed some mental health time to clear my head, and made sure everything was set. But here's the catch. I didn't say a word to Rachel. As far as she was concerned, I was still heading to work every day, just like normal. I went out and rented a car from some little no-name place a few towns over. Nothing flashy, just a basic car that wouldn't stand out. I wasn't about to follow her around in our own vehicle. That would have been a rookie mistake. And for the next 2 weeks, I became a full-time stalker. I'm not proud of it, but I had to know. I had to see if she was sneaking off to meet someone else when she thought I wasn't paying attention. So there I was, every morning, kissing her goodbye like I was heading to the office, and then spending my days tailing her. I followed her to work, the grocery store, even to her yoga class. I'd park a block away, keeping an eye out, waiting for anything suspicious to happen. Hell, I even sat outside a salon for 2 hours while she got her nails done. Yeah, I know how that sounds, but I was determined to be thorough. If she was meeting someone, I was going to catch it. But you know what I found after 2 weeks of playing detective? Nothing. Not a damn thing. Seriously, nothing. No secret meetups, no shady parking lot hookups, no weird phone calls or texts. Just Rachel, going about her life like everything was perfectly normal. Work, errands, brunch with her friends, it was all routine. And each day, I felt like a bigger idiot for even suspecting her. I started questioning myself. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe that condom wasn't what I thought it was. Maybe I was just losing my mind over nothing. But then, around a week and a half in, this unsettling thought started creeping into my mind. Something so absurd, so out of left field, that I didn't even want to consider it at first. But as the days passed, and I kept coming up empty, that thought grew louder and louder. What if it wasn't a man? At first, I brushed it off. It couldn't be. I mean, Rachel had always been into guys. Our sex life had been pretty solid, as far as I knew. She'd never shown any interest in women, at least not openly. We had even joked about it once or twice, but it was just that, a joke. Nothing serious. Still, that nagging thought wouldn't leave me alone. What if I'd been looking in the wrong places? What if I'd been chasing shadows this whole time while the real truth was right under my nose? I didn't want to believe it. Hell, I couldn't believe it. But once that seed of doubt was planted, there was no turning back. I wouldn't have any peace until I looked into it. So, I stopped looking for a random guy in the picture and started paying closer attention to her interactions with other women. Her coworkers, her gym friends, the lady she met up with for brunch. Was there something off? Had I missed any signs along the way? I didn't want to admit it to myself. But the more I watched, the more things started clicking into place. After those 2 weeks of playing detective and coming up short, things seemed to go back to normal, or at least Rachel thought they did. But I was still on high alert. The doubt never left me. I found myself scrutinizing everything she did. Every smile, every text message, every glance. And then a few weeks later, we had another family gathering at my parents' house. Normally, these visits were easy, laid-back affairs, but this time, it felt like I was walking into a pressure cooker. I insisted on driving, mainly because I needed to feel like I was in control of something. Rachel sat in the passenger seat, scrolling through her phone, completely oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. The whole ride, My grip on the steering wheel was so tight my knuckles went white. My heart was pounding, my mind racing with a million thoughts. I was so tense, like something was about to snap. But I had to play it cool, right? I couldn't let on that anything was wrong. Not yet. When we got to my parents' place, everything was as it always was. Warm greetings, hugs, laughter, the comforting smell of my mom's cooking. I tried to put on a smile, made small talk, but my head was spinning the entire time. Rachel seemed completely at ease. Too relaxed, in fact. And that only made my paranoia worse. As the evening went on, the women eventually called it a night. Rachel, my mom, and my sister headed off to bed while my dad and I stayed up to drink like we always did. My dad and I had always been close, sharing beers, telling stories, shooting the breeze. But that night, something fell off. Maybe it was just me, maybe it was the alcohol, or maybe it was the weight of everything I'd been holding on to, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper was at play. Normally, I can handle my liquor just fine, but that night, I decided to play a different game. I pretended to be way drunker than I actually was. After a few beers, I started slurring my words, stumbling around like a fool, and finally told my dad I was calling it a night. Rachel was already upstairs, so I made a whole performance out of it, staggering up to the room like I was out of my mind. Once I hit the bed, I laid there like a statue, barely breathing, listening to every sound. 10 minutes passed. It felt like hours, but I kept my breathing steady, faking that deep, drunken sleep. And just like I expected, Rachel quietly got out of bed. She moved carefully, probably thinking I was too drunk to notice. I waited, letting her get some distance. After about 5 minutes, I got up too. The house was dark and eerily silent, save for the soft hum of the fridge. My heart was pounding so hard in my ears that I thought it might give me away. Then I heard it, a faint rustling coming from one of the side rooms. Step by step, I moved closer, my stomach twisting in knots. When I reached the door, I slowly turned the knob and pushed it open. What I saw, it was straight out of a nightmare. There was Rachel, my wife, completely naked, but she wasn't alone. She was with him, my own father. For a split second, I just stood there, frozen in place, my brain struggling to comprehend the scene in front of me. Then, pure rage took over. I didn't think. I just acted. I stormed in and slapped my father across the face, hard enough to leave a mark. He barely had time to react before I grabbed him by the arm, yanked him out of the room, and shoved him toward the front door. He didn't even get a chance to grab his clothes. I kicked him out onto the lawn, stark naked, and yelled at him to get the hell out of my sight. I hoped to God the neighbor's cameras caught every humiliating second of it. Maybe that would give him the infamy he deserved. I turned back to Rachel, who was standing there like a statue, her face drained of color. "You're an absolute idiot," I spat, my voice shaking with a mix of anger and disgust. "You've destroyed everything." She didn't even try to defend herself. She knew she was caught, and there was no escaping it. But what I couldn't wrap my head around was why. Of all people, why him? My father? I was furious, disgusted, and heartbroken all at once. I glared at her, trembling with rage, and through clenched teeth, I asked, "How long?" She looked down, avoiding my eyes, and whispered, "Since the beginning of our marriage." Those words, "since the beginning," hit me like a bullet to the chest. Everything I thought I knew, every memory, every kiss, every promise, it was all a lie. From the very start, my life with her had been nothing but a joke. I couldn't stay there. I couldn't even look at her. Without another word, I grabbed my keys and stormed out of the house. I didn't care that it was the middle of the night or that I had no idea where I was going. I just needed to get away from her, from all of it. I drove for hours, the weight of everything crushing down on me. My wife, my father, their betrayal, the lies. I didn't know what to do, but I knew one thing for sure. I could never go back. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My body ached from the tension of the night before, and my head throbbed, not from the beer, but from the sheer emotional weight of what had happened. The betrayal was still raw, an open wound that wouldn't stop bleeding. I sat there for a long time, staring at the ceiling, trying to gather my thoughts. My father, my wife, the two people who were supposed to be the most reliable, constant figures in my life had blown it all apart. And for what? My father, who was supposed to be a role model, had betrayed me in the worst possible way. Rachel? She was supposed to be my partner, my wife. Now, all I felt was disgust for both of them. There was no coming back from this. I'm not the type to sit around and let things fester. I knew what needed to be done, and I wasn't going to waste any time. I reached for my phone and made the first call to my lawyer. We'd worked together before on business matters, but this was personal. "Hey, it's me," I said, my voice shaking at first, but I quickly steadied it. "I need a divorce. Fast." There was a brief pause on the other end. "Are you sure?" he asked, like I hadn't already thought this through a million times. "Yeah," I said, sharper this time. "I'm sure. I caught her. It's bad. I want this over with as soon as possible, and I'm not giving her a damn thing. The house, the money, it's all mine. She gets nothing." He could tell from my tone that I wasn't messing around. We talked logistics for a few minutes, and he assured me he'd start working on the papers that day. When I hung up, I felt a small sense of satisfaction. It wasn't much, but it was something. Then came the second call. This one wasn't about Rachel. This one was about my father. The rage I felt toward him was different. With Rachel, it was heartbreak mixed with betrayal, but with him, it was pure, unfiltered fury. And I had dirt on him. I knew about some shady dealings he had with the IRS. I never thought I'd use that knowledge. But after last night, he deserved every bit of hell that was coming his way. I dialed the IRS tip line, cold and calculated, already knowing exactly what to say. "There's someone you need to investigate," I said, my voice steady and sure. I laid it all out, the business, the fraudulent filings, everything I knew about. I didn't hold back a single detail. By the time I hung up, I was certain they had enough to start digging into him. And once they did, there'd be no escape for him. In the back of my mind, I almost wished they'd throw him in jail. After I hung up, this strange sense of calm washed over me. I wasn't done, not by a long shot, but those two phone calls felt like the first steps toward reclaiming some control. It was a small victory on a day that had otherwise been nothing but loss. I got up, grabbed a beer from the fridge, and sank down onto the couch. The house was way too quiet. I didn't even bother turning on the TV. I just sat there with the bottle in my hand, staring blankly at the wall. It was surreal how quickly everything had unraveled. The life I thought I had, gone, shattered in an instant. And now, I had no choice but to figure out how to pick up the pieces. After a few beers, I heard the door creak open. I didn't need to look to know it was Rachel. She stepped inside, her movements slow and hesitant. She was a mess, hair all tangled, face streaked with tears. It was clear she'd been crying for a while, but at that point, I didn't care anymore. She just stood there for a few moments, like she didn't know how to start. When she finally spoke, it was exactly what I expected. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, her voice trembling like those words would somehow fix everything. I made a mistake. A mistake. That's what she was calling it? A mistake? I didn't even bother looking at her. I kept my eyes forward, my voice cold and empty. "Pack your things," I said flatly. "You're moving out. The house is mine, and after the divorce, it's still going to be mine." I could feel her staring at me, stunned, like she couldn't believe I was being so blunt, so final. She took a shaky step closer. "But we can fix this. Please, I didn't mean for it to. I don't give a damn what you meant." I cut her off, finally turning to face her. "It's over, Rachel. I'm done. I don't want to hear another word. Get your things and go." Her face crumpled, but she still didn't move. She just stood there, as if she thought crying would make me change my mind. Maybe in the past that might have worked, but not now. Now, I felt nothing but disgust. She couldn't get to me anymore. I was done. When she still didn't move, I got up, marched over to the closet, and grabbed a suitcase. I started yanking her clothes off the hangers, throwing them into the bag without caring what I grabbed, shirts, pants, whatever. It didn't matter to me. She watched in shock, eyes wide like she couldn't believe what was happening. But I didn't stop. I shoved the suitcase into her arms and pointed toward the door. "Get out," I said, my voice low but firm. "I'll mail you the rest of your stuff." She stood there, clutching the suitcase, her face pale and streaked with tears. She opened her mouth like she was going to say something, but I didn't want to hear it. I wasn't interested in more excuses or apologies. It was too late for that. I turned my back on her and went back to the couch, grabbing another beer. A few moments later, I heard the door close softly behind her. Just like that, she was gone. I sat there, staring at the wall, beer in hand, feeling nothing. No satisfaction, no relief, just this deep emptiness where my life used to be. It wasn't over yet, but for the first time, I felt like I had some control. And for now, that was all I could ask for. A few months after the divorce, things were finally starting to settle down, though not in the way I had imagined. You know how people say, time heals all wounds? Yeah, that's total bullshit. Time doesn't heal anything. It just helps you learn to live with the scars. The pain was still there, but at least it wasn't as sharp as it had been. I wasn't just dealing with a broken marriage. It felt like my entire life had collapsed. The divorce didn't just split Rachel and me. It fractured my whole world, including my family. Out of my parents, the only one I kept in touch with was my mom. After what my dad did, there was no way back. I haven't said a single word to him since that night. I kicked him out, and I don't plan to ever speak to him again. As far as I'm concerned, he's dead to me. My mom, though, she's been a rock through all of this. Well, as much as she could be, considering the circumstances. I mean, it's not every day you find out your husband of over 30 years slept with your son's wife. She took it hard, really hard. I still remember the phone call when I told her. Her voice cracked, and I could hear her struggling to hold herself together. She kept apologizing, saying, I'm so sorry you had to go through this. Like any of this was her fault. It wasn't. None of this was on her. My father was just a selfish bastard. But she didn't wallow in it for long. A few weeks later, she filed for divorce. Just like that, 30 years of marriage down the drain because of his disgusting choices. She told me she couldn't stand to look at him anymore, let alone live with him. And I couldn't blame her. Honestly, I was proud of her for standing up and taking her life back after all the damage he'd done. She's been staying with her sister for now, figuring out her next steps. We talk all the time now, more than we did before everything blew up. Funny how that works, right? When your world burns down, you find out who really matters. She's the only part of my old life I've kept. As for me, I couldn't stay in that house anymore. Every inch of it was tainted with memories I didn't want to hold on to. The kitchen, where Rachel and I used to cook together, laughing over a glass of wine. Now it felt hollow, the laughter replaced with lies. The bedroom? Forget it. The bed where I thought I was safe, where I thought I knew my wife. Now, it was just a reminder of how blind I'd been. I couldn't breathe in that house any longer. So I sold it. It wasn't easy. Every time I walked through those empty rooms, packing up what little I still cared about, waves of memories crashed over me. Some were good, but most of them felt poisoned by what came after. I remember standing in the living room, staring at the bare walls, and realizing none of it mattered anymore. The furniture, the memories, the life we built, it was all just stuff. I left most of it behind because, frankly, I didn't want to carry any part of that old life with me. I packed up my clothes, a few personal items, and that was it. I still remember the moment I handed the keys over. The new owners were this young, hopeful couple, all excited about starting their life together. As I watched them, the only thought running through my mind was, I hope you never end up like me. I shook their hands, wished them well, and bolted out of there as fast as I could. After selling the house, I knew I had to make a plan. Staying in that city wasn't an option anymore. Everywhere I turned, there were constant reminders. The coffee shop where Rachel and I used to sit on lazy Sundays. The park where we walked our dog, dreaming about the future. Even seeing familiar faces we both knew, it was unbearable. The whispers behind my back, the sideways looks, the fake, "I'm sorry to hear," condolences, it all made me want to scream. I couldn't handle it. I had to leave. So, I started looking at new cities, places where I could start fresh, far away from all the memories. I considered places I'd never even thought about before. Cities far enough that I wouldn't run into anyone who knew me from my old life. I needed a reset. After a couple of months of searching, I found the right place. A city a few hundred miles away, distant enough from the wreckage of my past, but close enough that I could still visit my mom when she needed me. It's not huge, but it's big enough for me to blend into the crowd, which is exactly what I want right now. I found a small apartment. Not fancy, but it's enough for me to start over. It's a place where I can finally breathe again, without all the suffocating memories of Rachel, my dad, and everything else. I packed up my life, sold the rest, and now I'm ready to go. It's a weird feeling, a mix of fear and relief. Part of me is terrified. Starting over at 27 wasn't part of the plan, but after everything that happened, it's the only choice I have. I don't know what this new city holds for me. New job, new people, new life. But it has to be better than what I left behind. I'm ready to move forward, even if I don't know exactly what that looks like yet. But one thing's certain, I'm done looking back. I've lost too much already, and I'm not dragging the weight of my past with me anymore. It's time for a fresh start. It's been a while since my last update, so I figured it's time to fill you in on how things have been going. Honestly, life has taken some unexpected turns since I packed up and moved. I didn't know what to expect when I left, but things have fallen into place in ways I never could have imagined. First off, let's talk about work. Not long after I moved, I landed a decent job. Nothing fancy, but it's stable, and I actually enjoy it. I'm working at a mid-sized tech company as a project manager. The hours are fair, the people are laid back, and I'm no longer dragging the baggage of my personal life into the office. It's a clean slate, and it feels damn good. There's something to be said for throwing yourself into work after life falls apart. It helped me get my mind off all the crap I went through and gave me back my confidence. I really needed that. I've also been keeping busy outside of work. I picked up a couple of side gigs, freelance consulting for small businesses that need help with their tech setup. It doesn't bring in a ton of money, but it keeps my skills sharp and gives me a little extra cash to play with. Add to that a few smart investments, and I'm in a pretty good spot financially. I'm not rolling in it, but I'm comfortable. And after everything I've been through, that feels like a win. Now, I know some of you are curious about the whole relationship thing. After the mess with Rachel, I wasn't exactly eager to jump into anything serious. I spent a lot of time focusing on myself, figuring out what I actually wanted and needed. I went on a few dates, nothing serious. It was more about reminding myself that not every relationship is doomed to crash and burn. But, and here's where things get interesting, I met someone. Her name's Sophia, and we've been seeing each other for about 5 months now. At first, I wasn't looking for anything long-term, but sometimes life throws you a curveball. We met through some mutual friends at a party, and it just clicked. She's smart, funny, and down-to-earth. None of that fake, surface-level crap. What I appreciate most about her is that she's honest and doesn't put up with bullshit. After everything with Rachel, that's exactly what I need. Sophia knows all about my past, and when I told her, she didn't bolt. She listened, gave me space, and didn't push me to move faster than I was ready for. She's one of those rare people who just get it, who understand that everyone's got their own baggage, but it doesn't have to define them. For the first time in a long time, I feel like I can trust someone again. It's still early, but things are going better than I ever thought they would. So yeah, life's looking up. It's not perfect, and there are still days when I think about Rachel and my dad. But those thoughts don't stick around as long as they used to. I've moved on, and I'm in a better place, both mentally and physically. I'm focused on building something new, something better. Before I wrap this up, I just want to say this to anyone following my story, offering support, advice, or even just reading along. Take care of your relationships. I'm not saying you should walk on eggshells, but pay attention. Talk, Be honest, and don't take your partner for granted. I missed the signs with Rachel until it was too late. I let myself get comfortable, and that was part of the problem. Anyway, that's where I'm at now. Thanks for sticking with me through this crazy ride. I hope you're all doing well. Take care of yourselves, and don't forget to appreciate the people who matter. You never know how much they mean to you until it's too late. Good luck, everyone.